name is Mary Matzik with Calaveras Community Television. And we have a series of stories starting, and they are called the Storytellers of Calaveras County. And we're basically trying to get the wonderful personal stories of our old-timers. And I truly believe it's important to link the past with the present. Our ancestors sat around the fires and taught our children, our children, how to name, how to count, how to give names to the plants and the animals. They told the stories of their ancestral backgrounds. They memorized these and passed them on. They talked about their escape from a savage storm, or maybe a wonderful hunt, or a child born. And they also taught us the dreams of the future. They shared their dreams. And though we've opted for a more written history today, it's more about statistics and dates and evidences and traditions and superstitions and religious beliefs and accidents among presidents and kings. In Calaveras County, our history is our heritage. Our stories survive in the bars and over the back fence from neighbor to neighbor. We like to talk about our personal tales of daring do. And every character we talk about is really a mixture of all of us. We clutch them to us. We may share a bit of evil, a measure of good, a hint of exaggeration, a little suppression, maybe some judicious reporting or some juicy gossip, suspended credulity. We search for the truth and justice and laughter and maybe the neighbor's cow. We laud our friends and family, our past deeds of strength and valor. Oh yes, every story is a tradition we love. And those stories form a monument to our immortality. So let the tall tales begin.
So we're here on February 4th and we're talking to Flossie Sabatini. And Flossie has done many amazing things in her life, but today we're going to talk about her early childhood and Electra Powerhouse. And she has memories of Electra that most people have never even thought about. So I guess first maybe introduce yourself and your parents.
I'm Flossie Sabatini, and I'm 93 years old. My grandparents lived down at Middle Bar, so we're belong to Calaveras County. And my dad moved to a PG&E powerhouse in Electra, and I lived there for most of my life till we moved back to McCallum Hill.
So Electra might be a strange place to think of a child growing up. So you had kind of a unique childhood. And you had another sister?
I had a sister that was older than I, and our local doctor in Jackson said my husband's sister and I were the two meanest kids in Amador County.
Why would he say that?
Well, we were spoiled. I was spoiled. Anyway, we lived out to Electra, and it was great fun. I think back of it now, and it was wonderful. But at the time, no big deal.
But you were born in the house you're living in now.
I'm born in the...
Oh, yes. Sorry. You were born in the house that you're living in now, McCallum Hill, but you moved, when did you move to Electra?
When I was just a baby, small. But and now I'm back living in the same house, and it's old, but it's a home, so that's it. But then I lived most of my life before we moved to McCallum Hill was just an Electra powerhouse, no place else.
You had a short stint at Lake Tabot, and you had the influenza then.
I had the influenza, whatever they had, and they didn't think my father and I were going to live, but we did. We survived it. So then we lived at Lake Tabot for a few years, and then back to Electra for a good many years, and then back to McCallum Hill.
What was the story about the doctor treating you at Lake Tabot?
We lived at Lake Tabot, which was way up on the hill, and the only way you could get up there at that time was with a tram from Electra. And our district manager, Mr. Eskew, used to have one of the employees walk up the hill, pull the doctor up on the tram, wait till he took care of us. Then he'd let the doctor down the hill, and he'd walk down the hill. So that was a long time ago. But anyway, we survived. My dad and I both survived.
We're all glad that you both did, too. And that the director also, your regional director, also had a lot of control over his men, you were telling about?
Well, at that time, we didn't have any unions. So he was boss. And if any of most of the employees were young at that time, and if they were going with girls or thought they were going to get married and he didn't approve, he informed them as such. And if they didn't do what he said, he'd fire them. So you better do what he said, but that's different now. Very different.
So we have an old picture of the Electra Village up here. Do you want to point out some of the buildings and talk about what went on there?
I have to put my glasses on. Down here was a barn, and Mr. Eskew had cows. So some of the employees had to go down and milk the cows, which they were not too happy about, but they did. And then you came up the deal, and that is the house right there. It used to be a former clubhouse, but they turned it into a home, and that's the house that we lived in. And in back was a little house where the employees from down below would come up, and that's where they would stay. And over here was the bunkhouse for all the single men. This was a garage. Here was the office and warehouse. This building was not there, and right below here is where we used to go swimming all the time. This house was not here. That was a different clubhouse. And there used to be a big, long, they going up the hill, and sometimes the pipe would break up there, and the water would come rushing down past there, past our house, out there and out into the river. And when they had trouble in the powerhouse, this was normal. This water would shoot way over the deal and make a funny noise. So we all knew there was something wrong, and they would change, the wheels would change and make a different noise. And all the employees, operators rather, would run to help because they knew there was something wrong. And there was only 2 operators, and they had to do something, switching and all that sort of thing. So other than that, and then I don't remember this, but I remember this road that goes up. I don't remember that house. But right back here is where we used to always go swimming.
I think we have a picture of you and Alma in the pool.
Oh, yeah.
Let me grab that.
This here is my sister, and we're in this pool that's underneath here. And one is Wilda June Getchell, and one is me, but I can't tell which is which anymore. Those 2. And this was the inside of the powerhouse. I think that was my husband because it was one of our pictures, and I don't think I'd have one of anybody else. And this one up here, I know one is my sister, but I don't know who the other one is. And then these were all the houses up the and back, up the hill.
Now, you had a story of when you and you'd get in trouble with Alma, and then you'd run to the bunkhouse for help. How did that work out?
Oh, it worked out wonderful. If we got in trouble, I was always in trouble, so I would run across to the bunkhouse, and they wouldn't let her get me. At that time, you could spank people, or spank kids. And I got spanked, too, one at a time. But they would save me from being spanked.
Now, how did you all get to school? How did you get to school?
The PG&E supplied I don't know what you would call it, I guess it was a truck, and the sides were, you rolled them up when it rained. And we just sat in back, the kids sat in back, and we were taken to school in Jackson. And we did lots of things that we weren't supposed to. Our bus driver used to carry a little switch in the roll-up window. He never used it on us, but he threatened many a time. And I think the worst we did, we had a whole lot of rope in the back, and we let it out of the back of the truck as we were going, let the whole rope out. But we got in trouble, but not too much.
Now, your husband ended up working down at Electra, too. Did you meet him? Where did you meet him?
Oh, we went to school together, Jackson. See, I went to grammar school and all high school, so I knew him then. So that took care of that.
So you spent your early married years down at Electra also.
Yes, we spent down there until my mother was very ill. Then we moved back to McElmy Hill. I don't know whether we lived with my dad or my dad lived with us, but anyway, that's how I ended up coming back to McElmy Hill.
So do you remember the names of the other families that were down there at Electra with you?
Oh, yes. There was Fishers and Ratto. Leo Ratto, I think his son lives in San Andreas now. And Blakely's and Logomacina's, Getchell's, and us at that time. But it changed over the years, but we knew everybody.
So, Flossie, here's a picture of the clubhouse that was down there. Tell us what went on there.
Now, see, I do not remember two stories. But anyway, the clubhouse was right there anyway. And they had rooms for the single operators, and they had a kitchen and a cook that supplied the food. And then on this upper end here, we had, they had a big room there for billiards, is that what they called them, yeah. And they'd have Christmas parties there. But I don't remember it being two stories, but I think there were two different clubhouses at one time. And there was a rose garden that went from the powerhouse up there, and it was all lawn and all these beautiful roses. And up this way would be the pipeline, and sometimes that would break and that would come right down through, down the hill and out to the river. So that's all I remember of the clubhouse.
Was it noisy living in town? Was the rush of the generators noisy?
There was a hum all the time. And if you had company, they couldn't sleep because on account of the noise. But we were so used to it. And when we had trouble in the powerhouse, the generators would change. And it'd make a different sound and it'd wake you right up. And that's when the other operators would run to help them, because there was only two operators on the time, and they had those great big switches they had to do by hand. So then the other operators would help them. So we always knew when there was trouble.
The sound would change.
Sound would change. If you were sound asleep, you were awake. To the next, I was so brown. But that was all we could do. And then at the clubhouse, they had the billiard. Is that what they call them? Yeah.
Billiards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got good. Oh, you were good. Practice makes perfect. I was pretty good at shooting pool, but there wasn't anything else to do.
And as a child, you swam and you shot pool as a child then too?
I swam morning, noon, and night, and that's all. There wasn't anything else to do.
Well, then you went to school during the...
Oh, I went to school during the school year, but other than that, it was just, we didn't do things like they're doing nowadays.
Now, what about Sundays? Did you all go to church?
You couldn't go to church, you didn't have a car. We did not have cars, so you didn't get out. You just stayed in. I didn't go to church for years.
So when you and Elvin were married then, and you were a little bit older, were things different, or was the community
yes,
about...
Definitely. With them, when we got a car, our first one was a Model T. Oh my, that was wonderful. And at that time, you had to save up your money. There was no credit. You didn't do like they do. Now I could put it on a credit card, but at that time, no way. So it was a big deal when you got a car. And we had a Model T. I wish I had it now.
So where would you go on a weekend, or where would you drive to?
Well, most of the time it was just to visit relatives, because Elvin's folks lived in Jackson, and I had folks over here, so that was it. You didn't go anyplace. Didn't go to San Francisco. That was a big deal. I was in high school before I went to San Francisco, and that was, oh my, that was really something. Can you imagine? Other than that, it was very quiet, very different now. Now you have to be doing something all the time. At that time, no. Whole new ball game.
Now things are quite different. Electra is just, nobody lives there now. How did things change then?
Well, when they built the new powerhouse, that was it. Everybody moved out, so that no one was there. And the new powerhouse, we could step from our house and walk just like across the street, and that would be the new powerhouse. So I didn't live there when we all moved out at that time. So there's nothing there now, nothing.
And that was built in the 40s? When was that new
I
powerhouse?
don't know. I don't remember back then.
But
No.
I think that it's fully automated from...
Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. But we lived here in McElmy Hill, and the powerhouse was running. But I don't know the dates or anything anymore.
Yeah.
And it was during the war years, and that was when they were so strict. And you couldn't get in the powerhouse unless you got permission and went way down the line. So it was very quiet.
So that was a long gone era there, because you drive up now to the end of Electra Road and there's nothing there. Do you remember those years fondly?
Oh, gosh, yes. It was very quiet, very wonderful years. Things have changed so everywhere, so it changed out there too. And it's kind of sad to go out and see nothing going on, and you can only go so far now. So that was it.
Well, you were fortunate to have been there in its heyday and to have had such a good part of your life spent down there.
It was a very quiet, but everything was at that time. So I don't regret it. I look back with fond memories of Electra and everybody that lived in it. And I still talk to the one young girl that she had polio when she was a baby, and they used to let me take her down and take her swimming. And I talked to her, and that's the only one I know, except the Bratto boy in San Andres. I met him not too long ago. Other than that, that's all that's left of Electra.
So we just have pictures and your memories.
That's it. That's it.
Well, we're glad you shared your memories with us today. Thanks, Flossie.
Okay, you're welcome.